The Roman Empire was one of the largest political systems of the ancient world, and at its height, around the year 117 CE, it stretched across Europe, Asia, and Africa. Its territory covered lands that now belong to more than 30 modern countries. Governing such an enormous realm was a huge challenge. Rome's answer was a provincial system. It divided its empire into provinces that were not just geographic zones, but administrative and cultural spaces filled with many different peoples, traditions, and languages. Most provinces were created after military conquest. Once Rome had taken control of a region, it integrated that territory into its administrative framework. Officials were sent out to maintain order, enforce law, and represent Roman power. They were also often expected to spread Roman culture and the Roman way of life. This process is commonly called Romanization. It included the spread of the Latin language and Roman law, but also customs, habits, and public institutions. One of the clearest examples is the Roman legal tradition. Its influence has lasted far beyond antiquity. In many European countries, legal systems still reflect principles shaped by Roman law. In that sense, Roman administration did not end with the empire itself. Parts of it continued, transformed, and left a durable mark on how law and justice are understood. At the center of life in the provinces stood a crucial question: who had rights, and which rights? Roman citizenship was especially important. It was a highly valued status tied to legal protections and political privileges. Citizens had access to rights that non-citizens did not enjoy. But in the provinces, citizenship was not automatically available to everyone. Local populations often had to meet certain conditions in order to obtain it. That created a complicated web of rights and obligations that shaped the relationship between Rome and the peoples it ruled. Taxation was one of the most important and most sensitive parts of that relationship. The provinces were required to pay taxes to Rome, and those taxes were a major source of imperial revenue. For many local communities, this burden felt heavy, especially where Roman rule was seen as foreign or oppressive. At the same time, the system created incentives. In some cases, Roman citizens could benefit from certain tax advantages or exemptions. So there was a persistent tension. Some people sought the benefits linked to citizenship, while others experienced Roman taxation mainly as unfair pressure. This conflict between attraction and resentment appears again and again in the history of the provinces. Military service was another defining feature. Rome needed a strong army to defend its borders and secure its territories. Many provinces were expected to provide recruits for imperial forces. Large numbers of local men served in the Roman military, and that service often accelerated Romanization, because soldiers encountered Roman institutions, discipline, language, and everyday culture directly. Auxiliary units, recruited from different provinces, played an especially important role. They helped defend the empire, but they were also cultural bridges, carrying Roman values and practices across great distances. And yet the empire was never culturally uniform. In fact, one of the most striking features of the Roman world was its diversity. It included Gauls in what is now France, Berbers in North Africa, Greeks in the Eastern Mediterranean, and many other peoples besides. The empire was a vast mosaic of ethnic groups and traditions. This diversity encouraged cultural exchange and the circulation of ideas, and that exchange shaped Roman civilization itself. Roman architecture, art, and philosophy were enriched by contact with many local cultures. The roads, aqueducts, and public buildings Rome is famous for were not just technical achievements. They were also part of a wider world shaped by this cultural variety. A common misunderstanding is that Rome treated all provinces in the same way. In reality, the empire governed unevenly. Some provinces considered particularly loyal or economically important received more autonomy and more rights. Gaul is one example. After its conquest by Julius Caesar, it became highly important for Roman trade and the military. Other provinces, especially those viewed as unstable or rebellious, were controlled more strictly. Judea is a clear case. Roman rule there met strong resistance and eventually helped trigger the revolt known as the Jewish War. So Roman provincial government was always a balancing act between integration and control. The legal position of a province mattered, but so did its strategic value, its wealth, and Rome's perception of local loyalty. The rights and duties imposed by imperial rule were never purely abstract. They had deep social and cultural consequences. One group was especially important in making the system work: local elites. These were often wealthy and influential people who acted as intermediaries between Roman authorities and local populations. They helped maintain order and implement Roman law and administrative practices. By cooperating with Rome, they could protect their own interests and gain advantages such as access to markets, resources, and imperial favor. At the same time, they played a key role in Romanization by promoting Roman values and lifestyles within their own communities. Britannia offers a useful example. There, many local leaders were drawn into the Roman administrative system and granted citizenship. In effect, they became bridges between Roman and Celtic worlds. Roman culture left visible traces in Britain, including villas, towns, and other remains that can still be visited today. But Britannia also shows the limits of Roman power. In 60 CE, the uprising led by Queen Boudica broke out in direct response to Roman oppression and the disregard of local traditions. The revolt revealed how difficult it could be for Rome to secure loyalty in the provinces, and it reminds us that Roman rule was not always seen as beneficial. Religion added another layer of tension. The spread of the Roman pantheon and the imperial cult, in which the emperor was honored as a divine figure, formed part of Roman public culture. In some provinces, this met resistance. Judea was especially sensitive in this respect, and religious conflict there contributed to wider unrest and rebellion. More broadly, religious diversity across the empire was both a challenge and a source of cultural exchange. It created friction, but it also helped shape the civilization Rome became. The long-term effects of this provincial system are still visible today. Many European countries retain traces of Roman rule in their languages, legal traditions, and infrastructure. Roman roads often became the basis for later transport routes. Aqueducts and public buildings still stand as reminders of Roman engineering and administration. These remains are not just relics of a vanished empire. They are part of the cultural heritage that has helped shape the identities of many modern nations. In that sense, the history of Rome's provinces is not just a story about conquest. It is also a story about power, negotiation, identity, and adaptation. Rome expanded through military force, but it held its empire together through administration, taxation, legal categories, alliances with local elites, and cultural integration. Always imperfect, always contested. Some communities benefited from participation in the Roman system. Others resisted it fiercely. Many did both at different times. That complexity matters. It challenges any simple picture of the Roman Empire as either a purely civilizing force or a purely oppressive one. The provincial experience was mixed. It could bring order, infrastructure, legal frameworks, and access to broader markets. But it could also mean taxes, military demands, tighter control, cultural pressure, and open conflict. The empire's success depended on managing those contradictions, and it never did so equally everywhere. In the end, the Roman provinces show us how empires function, not as uniform blocks, but as layered systems of rights, obligations, privileges, and tensions. They also show how deeply imperial structures can shape the future. The Roman way of organizing territory, law, infrastructure, and local power influenced not only the ancient world, but the later development of European societies as well. That is what makes the provinces, peoples, and rights of the Roman Empire so fascinating. They reveal a world held together by administration and ambition, but also transformed by diversity, resistance, and exchange. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Aurora Knowledge, turn on notifications, and let us know in the comments which topic we should explore next.